Reddit, as a company, has never been well ran, has it? Despite being in existence for over 2 decades now, it somehow only had 3/4 of profitability in that time, despite being in the top 10 most visited websites on Earth for over a decade and counting. How do you even pull that one off? Well, just between all the unforced errors, senseless controversies, and missed monetization opportunities over the years. Like, I'll never forget what Reddit did with cutting off API access to apps like Apollo. Rest in power. But more importantly for today's topic, Reddit's also been home to a shocking number of conspiracies over the years. And I'm sure if you've been following the news lately, you've seen a certain conspiracy come to a head once more. And with all the running around over the files lately, that's jogged my memory on a lesser-known conspiracy. One forgotten with time, one adjacent to Jeff. Adjacent in theory, sure, but also adjacent by proximity, physically, literally. That's right. Today, we are talking about Ghislaine Maxwell's secret Reddit accounts. Plural. Now to start, who is u/maxwellhill? Maxwell Hill was the first user in Reddit history to get 1 million karma. In fact, at the week that Ghislaine Maxwell got jailed, they had the 8th most karma of all time on Reddit, out of like 100 million plus users. To this day, actually, they still have the 14th highest karma of all time, despite not posting since like 2020 or something when Ghislaine got jailed. We'll get to the conspiracy. But in terms of what else they've done, they've posted almost every single day for over 14 years in order to get there. And they were moderator or head moderator of top subreddits such as r/technology, r/world news, r/travel, health, economics, environment, cyber laws, bad cop no donuts, politics, pics, funny, the AMA subreddit, WTF, Obama, r/suicide watch, ironic, and r/greed, among others. Now, to establish the fact that Maxwell Hill is Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm going to go over some convenient coincidences that have cropped up over the years. Now, to start, did you know that Maxwell Hill is actually the colloquial name for Ghislaine Maxwell's familial estate? Named as such after her father bought it, but, you know, maybe coincidence. Speaking of coincidences, in the 14-plus year posting history of Maxwell Hill, what few gaps they did have in their posts conveniently lined up with key events in Ghislaine's life. Like, for example, did you know that when Ghislaine Maxwell's mother died, there was a 3-day gap in the posting history? Or what about another 3-day gap that occurred back when there was a Silicon Valley VC party led by Reddit, where Ellen Pao, former CEO at the time, reported seeing Ghislaine Maxwell? Kind of odd, don't you think? Even outside of this whole conspiracy, just take in the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was showing up at parties. And by the way, Ellen Pao said that everyone damn well knew what she did at the time. Like, just outside of this conspiracy, what the fuck? You know? But whatever, convenient coincidence, who knows? Also, Maxwell Hill loved to post about their encyclopedic knowledge involving the age of consent and minimum age of consent laws around the world, including all of the riders and sub-laws and addendums that are attached to each state by state. That's weird, okay? I know a lot of weird shit. That's not one of them. That will never be one of them. There's no reason to know that. That's just an odd thing to know, okay? That's weird. Like, you'd only need to know that and care to know that. There's no reason to be knowing those laws, okay? I'll leave it at that. Speaking of stuff that's sus, what about how they also keep posting, advocating for CSAM? And look, Reddit was edgy back in the day, okay? I get that. That being said, though, that is not something people were okay with at the time. And people commented at the time, too, just saying how weird and sus that was, which it was, okay? Speaking of other sus stuff, she also posted a lot, complaining about all of the different overly strict child protective laws worldwide, which, you know, I am amenable to this because I do think there is a lot of overly strict laws around what children can and cannot do. Like, children should be allowed to go and play independently of their parents watching and overseeing, okay? Their parents' protection should not need to be there, and kids should not get cops called on them just because they're playing without their parents around. It's just, I hate it. But that, Of course, that's not the angle she was taking. Maxwell Hill also posted a lot in environmental subreddits that they also moderated, specifically around the topic of ocean pollution and ocean protection, which conveniently is actually what the proven interests of Ghislaine Maxwell were charity-wise too. You see, Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in a lot of charities around ocean protection and ocean environmentalism, such as, for example, the Terramar Project. Also, if you look at when Maxwell Hill's account was created, it was in March of 2006, which is damn early for one, but specifically it was 7 months prior to Reddit getting acquired by Condé Nast. Condé, that nasty publication, owned Vanity Fair, by the way. Vanity Fair, which wrote a puff piece praising Epstein back in the day called The Talented Mr. Epstein. Now, with that connection in mind, reflecting upon my own mind and experiences, I should note that acquisitions, if I had to put a number on how long DD was supposed to be, I mean, it takes as long as it's gonna take, okay? But if I had to put a, median number on it, I'd say half a year. Oh dear, half a year, 7 months, close enough, okay? Now, hear me out here with the Condé Nast connection between Epstein and Ghislaine. Let's hypothesize, maybe, just maybe, Maxwell Hill was created as a DD account for Ghislaine Maxwell to conduct DD on behalf of Condé Nast, and then helped 7 months later broker the deal for it to close. And then she stuck around and kept posting, seeing the value that Reddit gave. Yeah, okay, we're starting to give it loose here, all right? But fuck it, I'm just dumping every piece of evidence I could find online on this, okay? Speaking of which, did you know that the biggest posting gap in Maxwell Hill's history as an account was a month-long gap surrounding the disappearance of Madeleine McCann? Madeleine McCann was abducted or some shit, I forget, but the police released a sketch of the perpetrator that they believed did the abduction or whatever the hell happened. And if you look at this police sketch, shockingly, does that not closely resemble the visage of Ghislaine Maxwell? Speaking of Condé Nast, mass media and all that, Ghislaine Maxwell's family came from media empires. Also, apparently they were in the spying business, but media moguls nonetheless, including such major publications as the Daily Mirror. So one could maybe surmise that Ghislaine Maxwell, if she so chose, could rise to the top of any digital media platform that she wanted to, like, say, Reddit, just like how Maxwell Hill has. And then just to end it off, we got this Gizmodo interview that Maxwell Hill, the prolific Reddit user that they were at the time, gave back in the day, where they mentioned one Jason Calacanis. Jason Calacanis tried back in the day to create a Reddit clone, but Jason was just not known at all outside of certain VC kind of startup circles. And Jason Calacanis, allegedly, was named in Epstein's Black Book, apparently. Just lovely, lovely. Now, in terms of what was done to disprove all these theories, the main thing that came up is a Vice article. Now, this Vice article essentially just made fun of all the different people out there who are seeing all these conspiracies in what amounts to just a series of convenient coincidences, which, fair, but alternatively, if we look at who benefited from Maxwell Hill, arguably none more than Vice. You see, Maxwell Hill, the #1 source and publication they linked to over their whole 14-year history was Vice, sending them billions of views and traffic likely, and overall, the amount of monetary gain they got from that was probably a lot. Right? So convenience. Of course they're defending Maxwell Hill, okay? But guess who else is? It's the mods who claim to work with Maxwell Hill too. A lot of mods would say, okay, we knew Maxwell Hill. It was actually just a British man in Malaysia, and the reason that they went offline is simply because they were getting harassed for being called Ghislaine Maxwell, which again, fair, except for the fact that can't be the case. Because on one hand, sure, okay, they did claim to be a man whenever they commented anywhere online, okay? Alternatively, though, if we look at the way they spoke, if they were really British and living in Malaysia, they would speak British, but they spoke American just with random British words thrown in, like, what's a British word? Regardless of what you want to say, okay, that is not how a British man would speak. They would speak British online. They would not speak American with some British words thrown in, okay? And furthermore, when you look at the common history of Maxwell Hill, you'll notice they just say, oh, I visited Southeast Asia and all the countries there once. If you actually were born there, or at least were living there, you would never say you visited once. But to top it all off, there was a second account that came up during this recounting of what Maxwell Hill was. It was called An Utensil or something. Now, An Utensil, if you look at their history, they never spoke to anyone else. All they did was mod a shit ton of subreddits. They're in this Reddit mod Illuminati, I guess you could say. And when you look at what they've actually done, they've shat up the politics subreddit and the technology subreddit to the point where the technology subreddit got removed from the default 25 that every Reddit user gets subscribed to when they create an account. Genuinely, look this shit up. It's crazy. And so a lot of people there would complain that this girl, they never messaged or communicated. So they were doing all these crazy mod moves, and just when anyone tried to ask them about it, they could never get a hold of them. They would never reply, right? And that can't be done when you're a mod. Now, An Utensil, if you look at who's inviting them to mod all the same subreddits, it's Maxwell Hill. It's Maxwell Hill. Maxwell Hill was the one who would invite An Utensil to all these subreddits. And if you look at what An Utensil would do, it's almost like they're a lapdog acting on behalf of Maxwell Hill. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because An Utensil went dark at the same time as Maxwell Hill, despite no heat being upon that account. Now, if you think about it, right, if there was truth to the reason those mods gave, that it's just a British man from Malaysia or whatever, and they were leaving Reddit because of all the harassment, then An Utensil would have continued on, because An Utensil is clearly Maxwell Hill's alt account. That's a big thing all these Reddit mods do. They have this nesting doll of different accounts that they're secretly behind. So that way, if they get demodded or whatever, if there's anything that goes wrong, they just have another sock puppet to take over and take charge of. And so nothing material actually happens. They get to continue on with their role despite any sort of controversy or malfeasance that they've done. So, that being said, if they left the internet because of all the harassment about being Ghislaine Maxwell, that would mean An Utensil would have continued on, but they didn't. They left at the exact same time. And again, I damn well know that An Utensil is a sock puppet for Maxwell Hill, whoever that may be, simply because if you look at Vote was this Reddit alternative during the mid-2010s. There was this big free speech thing, and everyone was like, oh, I'm leaving Reddit. And so Vote was created, and it was quickly abandoned. But if you look at when Maxwell Hill made a Vote account, it was on a specific date. And if you look at who else made an account on that exact same time, it's An Utensil. An Utensil is Maxwell Hill, regardless of what you take away today, okay? I hope I've made that clear. And if you do take the mod's message at face value of, oh yes, Maxwell Hill is a British man from Malaysia who simply stopped using Reddit because they got all these accusations, An Utensil would have continued on, and yet they fucking did. Shit. All right, I gotta be honest here, guys. I've been holding out on you. I got a smoking gun that's gonna tie all this shit together in a pretty bow, okay? And it's that Maxwell Hill has publicly stated their birthday is December, but it is after the winter start, so after December 21st. When is Ghislaine Maxwell's birthday, huh? December 25th. That's right. That means, without a doubt, confirmed that Ghislaine Maxwell is Santa Claus. No, but like seriously though, okay, has anything been irrefutably proven here today? Hell no, okay? And look, okay, I get it. Correlation does not equal causation. This is all just a series of coincidences, and it can all be explained away. That doesn't mean anything happened, okay? But fuck it! I want to believe. And is it really that unbelievable? Be honest with me, is it? Because, hell, I would have told you a decade ago if you told me that there was a man who's already been jailed once for the crime of trafficking children, and he's out there, and it's an open secret that he's doing it again, and he's got an island in the Caribbean that he brings them to, and brings who knows, God knows who, Stephen Hawking apparently, but just who knows who else, out onto this island, and he flies them and the girls out on his private jet that is called the Lolita Express. I would have said you're smoking crack. I wish I had my meth pipe right now. But, like, my point being is that this is just insanity, and yet everything I just said to you is irrefutable. Like, this is undisputed. Everyone agrees. Those are the facts. That all happened. It's legally known in court. This isn't some conspiracy. This actually is all true. And I remember hearing about this in like 2015 and shit, probably even earlier for all I remember. I remember hearing all this shit, and I thought, I mean, sure, maybe, I don't know, that sounds insane, whatever, and disregarding it, and yet it was all true. And so really, with everything you've heard today, is it really that unbelievable that Ghislaine Maxwell was one of the top Reddit users and Reddit mods in some secret cabal there? Hell no, I believe that. Ghislaine Maxwell is apparently going to testify soon, so she's probably going to be dead in a jail cell soon, who knows? And if you're going to ask me, Net Loss, do you believe that there's some shadowy cabal of elite pedophiles? Yeah, I'd say there probably is. I don't know that, but like, Christ, if you're gonna offer me a wager on it, I'd bet every dollar I had. And honestly, the more I think about this, the less insane it sounds, because I can see a rationale for it. Not that it's rational, to be clear, but I can see a story, a through line for how this makes sense. And it makes sense in the same way that you see a lot of rich people be kleptomaniacs, right? You know, there's a bit of a stereotype. Like you saw it in Breaking Bad, for example. Hank's wife was shoplifting. She does not need to shoplift. There was no economic reason for them to shoplift. And there's no reason to shoplift, to be clear, or steal anything. But that being said, if you're going to shoplift, if you're going to expect that of someone, you're going to assume the poorer you are, the more likely you would be to steal things, right? And yet there's this archetype, there's this stereotype of like this person who is wealthy and yet still steals. Why? Because it's not about the money or lack thereof or abundance thereof. In fact, maybe this abundance causes this compulsion, because when you have the money to do it, it's just done, right? But when you actually want the thrill of a devious lick, that is something money cannot buy. You can't purchase the thrill of heisting something, okay? The only way you can get that thrill is through heisting something. And so a lot of people, even though they have no economic reason to, will still steal because that's the only way to get that thrill filled, right? And so in that same vein, if you are truly wealthy, especially to the point where there is nothing you cannot get, what are the few things left that are thrills, I guess? I mean, I'm not explaining it as in a way of like this makes sense in a justification. I'm just saying I can see a story for how they come to be this way, but I do believe that there is a group of people who are that way. In the same way there's a bunch of rich people that still steal, I think there's a bunch of super wealthy people or very powerful people or whatever who are just doing kids for the fuck of it. It's just because there's nothing else left to not do. It's the one thing they still can't do, and so they must do it to get anything out of life. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it really does feel like they're flying by the seat of their pants on this one, eh? It started with campaigning on, oh, we're gonna release the files. Then they get in power, say drops imminent. It's on someone's desk right now being reviewed. And then wait, no, actually, it was never real. In fact, we looked into it. There's nothing weird going on there. And then next thing you know, the file never existed. Shut up, stop talking about it. And now, oh, they do exist, but it's fake. It's fake news. Obama made it somehow. He went back to the future or some shit. Like, none of this makes any goddamn sense. And some of you foolishly may think that this is just like any other flip-flop Don does, where he'll be back in a week or two and all the different people will be suddenly falling in line once a unified message comes out. But I don't think Teflon Don's slipping out of this one quite so easily. Because you see, he's seriously gone from saying release the files to hiding the files over the span of 2 fucking months. Like, this is unexplainable. Epstein literally had 1,000+ DVDs, all with names on them. He handwrote names for who was on the DVD. Do they seriously expect us to fucking believe that Epstein just made 1,000 DVDs, all of himself, and then just wrote his own name individually on each one of them? Fuck off. Okay? And let's be real here. If Epstein had any friend in life, it was Donald. All right? Trump and him have gone back many, many decades together, and they've both gone on record glazing each other multiple times. Trump himself has said he loved Jeffrey Epstein. They've been great friends for 15+ years at one point, and they both love beautiful women on the younger side. He knew! Okay, Epstein himself, for Christ's sake, said Trump was his best friend in life. For over a decade, Trump bought the world's biggest underage beauty pageant and then famously would walk in to all of their changing rooms while they're changing constantly. They're fucking hiding it because he's hot. Okay? I bet Trump has diddled his own fucking daughter.